Welcome to a new and slightly different episode to Pinot and Pixel. This time from England again on my brand new sofa in an Airbnb, but I'm thinking about keeping that for the next podcast episode. You know, just sitting on a sofa chatting with somebody from the industry or friends, whatever, about topics surrounded by drinks, wine, good people. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Well, actually, we have to talk about some good and some bad things this week. And even though this is not a podcast where we usually talk about politics, Trump has won the election in 2024, and we have to talk about it, at least very, very briefly, just to give an outlook on what might we have to expect in the drinks industry. Have fun with another weekly update on November 9th, 2024. Welcome to the Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 208, the weekly update, short and briefly, 6 news. And, you know, I'm a big believer in karma. Maybe this is why I was interested in the Karma Kiwi from the Wheat Friends in 2021 and invested also in this future Pokemon brand, or at least with a part of my income. And on Tuesday, I had one of these karma moments. Not exactly on Tuesday, but 2 days after, because we had a rarity tasting on Tuesday. Everybody brought some interesting bottles. I brought some Bordeaux, some Burgundy, some Swiss Pinot, for example, and everybody shared one or two stories with the bottle he or she brought. And we started with a very special sparkling bottle. But before I will release the secret, what this bottle was, we have to talk about the sad news that are closely related to it, talking about karma. Josep Ferrer Cellar was one of the driving forces, not only in the wine or even in the sparkling industry. He was the face for the brand Freixenet. He died at the age of 99 years, and he's responsible for the huge success, for the big growth and the visibility of the brand Freixenet. He was born on October 1925 and joined the brand Freixenet in 1959. The brand was created in 1914, and even though many of us think that today Freixenet is responsible for well-made but lower-priced cava, Freixenet, almost similar to Rotkäppchen, used to be a really high-quality sparkling producer. So when he joined in 1959, he even grew the brand more than it was already growing, and it became a huge success. In the 1960s and early 1970s, Freixenet was responsible for very, very good and well-made cava, also very high priced. The prices I found on the internet and from the 1960s were about $8 at that time, which makes it probably 50, 60, 70 euro when we transfer this, or we try to transfer this to recent years. He stayed with the brand until 1999, so over 40 years he was in charge for Freixenet. He became chairman, co-chairman, and even until 2018 he had more or less a role in the company. And what was also interesting, he was also responsible for the beginning of the brand Cordon Negro. And we talked about this. This brand has its 50th anniversary this year. Cordon Negro is if you don't know that, is a black label, high quality traditional method sparkling wine. And before 1974, Freixenet was already making high-quality sparkling wine. So unfortunately, he died. I think he had a great life, very successful, beautiful family, big family. The family are following his footsteps and are still part of the brand. He made it up to 99 years. This is so impressive. And he left a legacy. And one part of this legacy was part of the tasting on Tuesday night. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have ever had a Freixenet, forget everything what you know about Freixenet. The bottle I'm holding into the camera right now is a vintage cava from 1969, Zero Dosage Brut Nature. So this is probably one of the most exciting products you can imagine from this region. And at that time, it was a blast. This bottle, this wine was 55 years old. And guess what? It was still amazing. It was over the top, of course. It was stored not in the very best conditions as far as the owner told me. Nevertheless, absolutely crazy product. Sherry notes in the nose. There was still a bit of a fizz. It was so impressive to have this wine in the beginning of the tasting. And then in the end, we paired it with some cheese, and it was freaking good. So if you ever have the chance to get a bottle of this in your hands, check Wine Searcher. Every now and then there are vintage cavas from the late 1960s. It is super interesting to try stuff like that. And the people were really amazed by the age and the condition, not only of this bottle, but this, guys, was the start. Crazy, isn't it? One of the icons in the industry left it and is now in a better place, maybe drinking some good sparkling wine. I don't know if he's just enjoying cava right now, but maybe there's also some other stuff. For example, English sparkling. By the way, yesterday we started our wine tour in England, and we visited the first two producers, and they were totally different. One was a small producer that is focused on crafted wines, also on technology, is a wine grower who's working with one of the best winemakers in the industry, Tommy Grimshaw. And the other hand, we had 100 Hills, super premium, high quality sparkling wine, beautiful estate, really well managed wine tourism, in my opinion, on point branding, and a lot of drive for the export markets, which is not very usual in the UK. They're getting used to it, but they're still figuring out how, where, and when. We go to the next topic. This is something that really surprised me. Bordeaux decided to chaptalize this year. If you don't know what this means, chaptalize means if your alcohol levels will be too low because your juice is high in acidic and low in sugar, or maybe just low in sugar, depending on the grape, you are allowed to add sugar to that to have a higher alcohol level in the end with the finished wine. And usually Bordeaux, especially on the right bank, is struggling with high alcohol levels. Merlot is earlier ripening than Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon. So usually the Merlot is very, very ripe. Sometimes the wines that have a majority of Merlot in it are tending to have 14.5 alcohol. And this year was cooler. There was a little bit more rain. And sometimes they even struggled to ripen the grapes. So when they have harvested, they discovered that some of their wines will end up in 11 or 12 alcohol. So what did they do? They said, well, we need some more alcohol because alcohol is responsible to keep the wine, to give high quality to the wine, and we chaptalize it. So we have 13, maybe 14 again. And the interesting thing is, I'm not a fan of chaptalization. Okay, sometimes every now and then to get a balanced product, especially when the acidity is way too high, it makes sense to balance this acidity. Crafted wine growers would say, never, 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 ever, because this is what nature gave me. We should find a balance in that wine, maybe through blending, because blending was and is, I would say, the skill that Bordeaux used to be really good at. And I was really sad to read that in two different ways. First, usually everybody's complaining about climate change, alcohol levels are too high, everybody is trying to get low alcohol levels. And by the way, this is the same in England. England has alcohol levels between 9 and 11. And instead of being proud of it, working with it, using it for the future generation of wine drinkers, saying, hey, we're low in alcohol, but this is high quality, it's a super good taste, the aromas are kept, love that, drink that, they chaptalize every now and then to get bolder wines because they think that this is something that is paying on quality, on longevity of wines, but it's not. You don't have to have alcohol in your wines at a very high level to make your wine age-worthy. And the second thing is that, especially now when people are interested in fresher and lighter wines, in fruitier wines, this is a chance to make kind of a rebranding of Bordeaux styles, getting back to the original Bordeaux style that ended probably somewhere in the last century, but at the latest with Robert Parker when the wines were getting bolder and bolder. The claret style, this fruity, fresh, fruit forward-driven light red wines. This could have been a chance, and most of them, unfortunately, missed that. And if you don't know, or if you struggle with getting what I'm talking about, another bottle in the tasting of Tuesday night was a 1970 Cellar Ségur. This is a winery from Saint-Estèphe, usually sitting around €40 on the shelf, meaning this is not a very expensive wine, but they know how to make quality. And these wines tend to have 11 to 12 alcohol in the 70s. And guess what? This wine was freaking amazing. It changed over the time. We had fun with this bottle of wine for over 3 hours. It was opening up. There was tertiary aromas, dried fruits, cinnamon, oak, leather. Everything was there. It was just amazing to have a bottle of this wine. And this bottle is also 54 years old. And it was still alive, guys. It was such an enjoyment to have this bottle of wine. You don't need high alcohol levels to make great wines. And this is what many people are also saying right now in the industry. Please give claret a chance. Try to put something in the market that people are more interested in, and maybe even with blending, try to have at least maybe a bolder wine, and then the second wine is the fresher one. Just to show people what Bordeaux is able to do, especially with the different weather conditions. I mean, Bordeaux is heavily affected with the ocean, but this could have been a chance and an option, but unfortunately, many of them decided not to do so. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for Après-Ski 2025 to hear the ratings of the experts when they are tasting lighter Bordeaux reds. Next news is a fun one from the UK. This was basically an accident discovering that news, but it's super, super interesting. A real estate, it's super funny as well. A real estate company in Norfolk is selling a Second World War bunker. No, it's not a Second World War bunker. It was built after the Second World War during the Cold War, because some people were afraid of getting, let's say, in between the lines of the Americans and Russians. So they built a bunker. This is what it looks like. If you can't see that, it basically looks like an apartment under the soil, maybe 2 meters, 3 meters, with one access point with a ladder, and the other one is just for oxygen with some filters in it. And this real estate agent says, we have to sell this bunker. And so many people said, how can I use that? I mean, what shall I do with a bunker? And this guy said, well, looks like it could be a really interesting wine cellar. So right now he is advertising this auction and this bunker with a highly protected, well-isolated wine cellar. I mean, the access is a bit difficult through the ladder, but maybe there can be made some adjustments to bring the bottles down in an easier way. But definitely, this is a use case I'm really excited for. The only problem is, look at this. I mean, it's just a field in the middle of nowhere. It looks like, I don't know, a valley, a meadow, and then there's just this concrete top. I mean, I guess nobody would expect to find high quality, very expensive wine down there. But, I don't know. It will feel a bit weird, especially to me, to have my wine stored in a cellar like this on the perfect conditions, but not having access to it, living close away from that. Maybe somebody buys it and builds a house on it, or at least a shed or something. Could be an interesting point for wine tourism, but Norfolk is not suited with so many vineyards. There are some in the area, but it's not the wine area of England. Maybe it will come in the future, we'll see, but I guess the concentration is more on the southern part of England. So now is the time where we have to talk briefly about the elections in the UK. And we start with news from the liquor stores in New York City. The people on Tuesday, election day, went totally crazy on alcohol. Some shops saw 4x in visitors and sales on the Tuesday night. And of course, they tried to get some people. The New York Post has a really funny article on that. My favorite quote when they ask a person, why are you buying so much alcohol, was, I bought 2 bottles of wine. I've got one bad one for the bad news, and I've got a good one for good news. And I mean, depending on what party you were supporting, some had the bad bottle on that night, some had the good one. For the people who don't know what happened, and I mean, I guess everybody got it, Trump won the election, and he will become the 47th president of the United States and will move to the White House in 2024. So many people were expecting either a win or a disaster and bought more alcohol than usual, which is quite interesting. It was not only wine, it was also spirits and also very, very hard liquors. So if you're interested in what happened on Tuesday before the election was finished, read that article. Link is in the show notes. Of course, we also have to talk about the future impacts on the industry and the drinks industry. And we don't want to go so much in detail. I just want to give you a feeling what could happen, especially for the drinks industry, when Trump is really relying on his thoughts, on his suggestions, and also on the promises he made during the pre-election period. The major thing that will impact the wine industry or the spirits industry, the drinks industry, is that he said he will put taxes on every foreign product up to 200% to push the national industry. And this would not only affect the drinks industry, of course, think about electric cars, for example, or other food products, agricultural products. There's so many things we have to consider, that America is relying on imports and also other countries are relying on exports. And he will push the exports, he will block the imports. This will give tensions in international relationships. And I'm so not looking forward to that. But talking about the drinks industry, just to give you a feeling, some of the big brands, Diageo, 40% of Diageo's revenue is made in the US market. LVMH, 34% in the US. Pernod Ricard, 30% in the US. Prosecco, the total export of Prosecco, 25% of that accounts for the United States. The same with Scotch. The US is the largest market for Scotch. And the last time Trump put tariffs on that, and at that time it was 25%, Scotch saw a loss of $600 million over a period of, 20 months or so. It was absolutely crazy. Constellation Brands is a brand that is located in the US, but of course they rely on the sales of tequila, of beer, and 80% of their beer comes from Mexico. And we know what Trump's problems are with Mexico. I mean, I was in California in August, and if you remove every worker from Mexico, they influence the people from Mexico, California is empty. Basically, California is a Mexican state. This was just my personal impression. I mean, people who are living there see that totally different. I get it. But for me, this was something different. And Constellation Brands is only one brand in the US that is major or heavily dependent from Mexico. And of course, generally, tequila. Tequila has been on the rise for the last 12, 18 months. And most of the tequila projects are Mexican products, and most of the tequila products are Mexican products, and this will definitely also have an impact on tequila sales. Looking on the other side, what could happen? Beers in the US, bourbon, whiskey, they will see a push, and also, of course, some of the big brands are owning produce or brands from the American industry, and they will see a push there, but I guess the decline will be way higher than the rise in the regional products. We will keep you updated on that as soon as Trump is moving to the White House. We will see major impacts on the industry, and we'll keep you updated on that podcast. And last but not least, just because we love to talk about celebrities, a small but, in my opinion, quite exciting news from the alcohol-free celebrity corner. Katy Perry is the ambassador, the owner, the founder of De Soy, or De Soy, however you want to pronounce it. It's a ready-to-drink, and she released perfectly suited for the Christmas sales that are upcoming, an alcohol-free Après-Ski spritz. It's called St. Moritz Mule, and it's an alcohol-free ready-to-drink enriched with adaptogens. So it's not only alcohol-free, it's not only refreshing, it is also having some ingredients that give you this revitalizing feeling. And if you don't know what I'm talking about lion's mane. Let me check the ingredients list. I'm talking about reishi mushroom and L-theanine. So something that gives you a mood booster and anxiety reduction. Said to be so. Interesting drink. And look at this color. It's a deep, flashy red. This looks just sexy, guys. If you're not watching, Google De Soy St. Moritz Mule and look at the color. Beautiful. I would love to try that. Unfortunately, it's not available in the German market. I will see if I can get my hands on this brand in the UK. And if not, orders from the websites will be available from November 1st and in other shops from November 15th if you are interested in that. Thanks for listening, guys. This is it. Short and briefly, weekly update number 208. Have a freaking great weekend. See you on Wednesday. Ciao, ciao.